Hey everybody, this is Gregory from Dapp University. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to build a blockchain application with React.js. This is going to be the first video in a mini-series where we're going to build an Ethereum Dapp with React.js that talks to smart contracts on the blockchain. So before we get into that, be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already and click the like button down below. And also, if you want to see more tutorials like this, you can download my courses for free on my website over at dappuniversity.com/free download. Before we start programming the project, I want to take a quick second to explain what React.js is and why we're going to use it in this tutorial. So React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. And in this case, we're going to build a client-side application that's going to run in our web browser. So React is a component-based library, which basically means that components are the basic building blocks for this JavaScript application that's written in React. So components basically allow us to organize our code inside of individual files that have, sort of the basic units of HTML with JavaScript mixed in. And we can render out these components and attach them onto the DOM, which will show them on the page. And, there's a lot of great stuff that we get with React and using React components. There's a lot of magic that's going to happen behind the scenes, some extra functionality that we can take advantage of to, write less code and do things faster and just organize things. And there's a lot of great stuff that you get just from using React. And you'll see that as we progress through this tutorial series. The second thing that you get with React that we're really going to make a lot of use of is state. So React allows you to manage your application state. So basically what that means is, your web page or your application is going to be in some state all the time. It's going to, have certain things on the page, certain things not on the page. Those things are going to change, and you want to be able to manage that without having to refresh the page. So an example would be this to-do list over here. I can add an item to it, say item 1. Oops, sorry. Do item 1, add to the list, and say item 2, add to the list. So React is managing the state of this to-do list or the number of items that are on it and which items they are. It's managing that. That's part of the application state. And it's got all the functionality to do that built in, which is, you see a little example of that here. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that we get for free with React that we're going to make a lot of use of in this tutorial. So that gives you an overview, and let's jump into building our application. First, let's make sure we have all the dependencies installed that we need to build a project. The first dependency is Node.js. You can see if you have Node installed by going to your terminal and typing node-v. If you don't have Node installed, you can install it yourself with a package manager like Homebrew, or you can download it directly from the Node.js website. So once you have Node installed, you're going to use Node Package Manager to install the rest of the dependencies. And the first dependency that we need is called Create React App. We'll install Create React App like this. We'll say npm install Create React App. All right. Okay, so Create React App is basically going to allow us to do just what it sounds like. It's going to allow us to create a new React app with a bunch of stuff for free. We're not going to have to do too much configuration to set the project up. We'll simply be able to run a command that'll create a new app for us with a lot of things, ready to go out of the box. So let's use Create React App to install the application. We'll do that like this. We'll say Create React App. And we'll call this ETH to-do list React. Okay. All right, now that's finished. Now let's enter into the project. We'll say cd ETH to-do list React. All right. Now let's open a new tab. I'm going to just run the server that came with Create React App to see what we just unboxed. So we'll say npm start. It should open a new web browser for us. All right, so this is the web page that came with Create React App out of the box. So we can see that something's already here, and we started our server successfully. So let's actually open up the project and kind of see, momentarily what's inside of here. So I'll open this. I'm going to use my text editor, Sublime Text. I open my projects like this. I say subl dot. All right, that just opens the current directory in Sublime Text. So inside of here, we can see that a lot of files are created. We have a package.json file that lists all the dependencies for the project. and it's got a get ignore file. It's already configured to add the node modules and things like that, keep them out of the project. We got a source directory that keeps track of all our components and CSS files and JavaScript files and things like that. So we can briefly kind of look inside of this app.js file. This is the main component for the React app. And this looks a lot like the component I just showed you a second ago on the web page. This is a class that extends component. It's getting pulled in from React here. We'll talk more about that momentarily. But we can see the content that's currently listed on the page. We got a header that's got the logo with this text, edit this and reload. We can go here and see this. So let's actually change the text. We'll just say hello world. We'll save it. Oops, sorry. Can't type today. And we'll see that the page reloaded after I saved, and I didn't even hit refresh on my browser. That's because React, create React app out of the box, gave us a server with hot loading already enabled. So anytime we save a file change, we see those changes automatically populated in our browser. It's really nice. So let's keep kind of installing some dependencies for the project. I'm going to close the server for now, because we're going to want to restart that after we install our dependencies. The first dependency I want to install for the project itself is the Web3.js library. And this is the library that's going to allow us to turn our React application into a blockchain application. We're going to be able to talk to the blockchain directly with JavaScript. So we can install Web3 in our project like this. We'll just say, go to our terminal, say npm install --save web3. I'm going to use this specific version, which is 1.0.0-beta.46. So I'll save this. Let this install. All right, so that installed. The next dependency is the Bootstrap templating framework. This is basically going to allow us to, create a nice looking UI without having to write really any CSS. So we're going to install that in our project like this. We'll just say npm install React Bootstrap. This is actually a different package that's going to include Bootstrap, and we'll pass in Bootstrap. So we'll just hit enter to install that into our project. All right, now that's finished. So we have all our dependencies installed. Let's open up our project and start actually writing the app. So first we can just go to package.json and verify that everything's in there. We got Bootstrap, and we got React Bootstrap and Web3. So all that looks right. Let's go into this app.js file and let's write some code. So we'll say, we'll just clear this out. We'll use class name container. And I'll say h1 tag. And inside of here, we'll just say hello world. Okay. Save this. Let's go back and start our server again after we installed our dependencies. Say npm start. Okay. So we see that this code loaded. We need to configure our index.js file. We actually want to add a requirement for the Bootstrap CSS. Do like this. We'll just say bootstrap dist css bootstrap.css. So that's basically just pulling in the CSS file from Bootstrap out of our node modules directory. We can see Bootstrap's down here somewhere. So I'm going to save that and reload the page. And we can see the font changed, and we have this nice, margin offset. That's the default behavior for a container inside of Bootstrap. That's what we did here. We wrapped this in a container. Okay, so looks like everything's set up properly. Our server's running. Our app has loaded. We have Bootstrap, picking up the styling. Everything looks like it's good to go. So what I want to do next is actually connect our application to the blockchain with Web3.js. So I'll show you how to do that. First, we're going to just pull in Web3.js into this component here. We're inside this main app.js component. We're just going to pull in Web3 like this. We're going to use this ES6 import syntax. Actually, first of all, let's take this logo out. Take logo out, and we'll remove the file here. And actually, let's take out Let's take out the CSS too. We'll keep the files there for later, but we're just going to take out the code. Yeah, let's take this out. Boom, done. All right, so sorry. Inside of here, we're going to import Web3 like this. We're just going to say import Web3 from Web3, okay? And what that does is, this is the ES6 import syntax. Basically, this is going to import the Web3 library as Web3 like this. So what I'll do is we want to load Web3 into this component. But first, let's just save it and make sure that it imported properly. So I'm going to open the console here after a refresh and make sure there's no errors. Okay, so it loaded properly without any errors. We have a linter warning here that says Web3 is defined but never used. That's okay. We're going to use it here in a second. But it imported properly. So everything's installed and we can find it inside of this component. So let's actually initialize Web3 to talk to the blockchain. What we want to do is create a function that does this. We'll say async. It's going to be an asynchronous function. We're going to use the async await pattern. We'll say async load blockchain data. Okay. And if you see my other tutorials, this async await pattern is a way of handling the asynchronous loading of data from the blockchain. And the new Web3 version, Web3 1.0, it allows us to use async await, which is really nice because, just interacting with blockchains is really all about asynchronous interactions. And the async await pattern is one strategy for handling that. It's the strategy that I've found to enjoy the most. And we can do that with React. We can do that with Web3 1.0. But in order to use the pattern, we must call this function asynchronous here. Let's name it async and say const Web3 equals new. We'll see the Web3 from here. Web3. And I'm just going to pass in Web3 given provider. This is going to use the Web3 provider from our browser if it exists. This would be from MetaMask. So don't worry too much if you don't necessarily understand this part. It's not such a big deal. Say HTTP localhost. I'm just going to use a fallback provider here. Okay. So I also should mention, you need MetaMask installed in order to follow along this tutorial. I've got several other videos where I show you how to use MetaMask, but just make sure that MetaMask is running, that you have it installed in Chrome, and that you're connected to a blockchain network. So this would be the provider from MetaMask, and I'm going to say const network equals await. So we're using the async await pattern here. Await web3.eth.network get network type. Okay. And let's just log this out to the console. Oops, sorry, network. Say network. Okay, so let's go to the web browser and see what it says. It should say mainnet. Let's try again. Oh, I know why. Because we're not actually rendering this function. We're not calling it, excuse me. So we need to call this function, and we don't want to do it inside this render function. That would be wrong. We want to do it in a different function. We're going to actually do this in a lifecycle callback. So what the heck is that? So I'll explain. React gives us some functions for free inside our components. Any class that extends a React component is going to have access to these. And they allow us to basically call functions that happen at different points in time when this component is rendered. So I'm going to use a function called component will mount. And this, what's going to do is allow us to call this function inside here. So I'll say this load blockchain data. I'll click save. All right, and now it should work. All right, so the mainnet has been detected. Okay, so yeah, this basically is a lifecycle component function that is going to get called basically before render is called. And it's going to load this blockchain data before this render function actually renders out. So I'll potentially explain more of these kind of as the tutorial progresses, but that's kind of what this does for now. All right, so that worked. And the next thing we want to do is actually put some blockchain data on the page. So below hello world here, let's actually just list out the account that we're connected to the blockchain with. So if I go to MetaMask, basically I want to show this account right here, this account on the page, okay? I'm going to put it down here. So we'll say like your account. I'm going to list the account here. So how do we do that? Well, we can load the account from Web3 here. We can fetch the account. But then we'll need to pass the account from this function down here into the HTML. And how do we do that? Well, this is going to be a really good use case for, the React state that I talked about earlier, where, I talked about managing application state like this to-do list where we saw item 1, item 2. We want to be able to store blockchain data inside the state as well. We want to be able to store, for instance, the account that we're connected with. That'll be the first thing that we do. And we'll use this state object, okay, to do that. So first, let's actually set up the state just like this. I'm going to copy the code from the documentation. I'll just say constructor right here. And I'm not going to use all the same stuff. Let's just take this out. What I am going to use is this. So I'm going to use this constructor function. This is a special function that React is going to know about with component. So we need to call super inside of here and pass this thing called props in. We'll talk more about props later. But for now, we want to initialize the state. And here we basically want to set an account, say account. It's going to equal this empty string for now. And then we'll set the account inside of here whenever we fetch it. And then we'll read it out of the state here. So basically this will be, your account from state. Okay. All right, so that's 3 things. We set the account by default here. We fetch it from the blockchain and then we render it out here. So let's fetch the account from the blockchain first. We'll say const accounts equals await web3 eth get accounts. All right. And let's console log that just to make sure it worked. Accounts. Let's actually do the first one. Let's just say account. Let's reload our app and see what happened. Okay, we got the account here. All right, so now we have the account successfully. Let's actually add it to this state object here. We'll say this set state. Say account. Let's be accounts 0. Okay, so now we're actually updating the state after the account's loaded. We put it here. And what we're going to do is fetch this out of the state and put it on the page. So we'll do that like this. We'll say this.state.account. Boom, easy. So I'll explain that. So inside of here, this is HTML code, but we can use these curly braces to tell React that we're actually going to be executing JavaScript inside of these curly braces. And we're going to fetch the state object that's bound to this, say this.state equals this. Now we say this.state, and we can read the account value here. So let's just save that, and let's reload the page. All right, boom. We've got the account listed here. So you successfully have created a React application that talks to the blockchain. And we've actually fetched some data from the blockchain and put it on the page with Bootstrap. It looks nice. We've got some formatting here. So that's the first step in this tutorial series, guys. So I hope you all liked this video. Again, if you're interested in more tutorials like this, you can download my courses for free on my website over at dappuniversity.com/free download. So also be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already to see the next video in this mini series where we keep building on top of this project. And also be sure to like the thumbs up button down below. Click that button so that more people can learn how to build technology by finding these videos. It really helps them out in the YouTube algorithm so that more people can find them and watch them and benefit from all this free content that I'm putting out. So again, hope you all like this video, and until next time, thanks for watching Dapp University.